Good morning. I'm honored to be here. First of all, since it's a digital world, every slide is now not available at this web address, blendergroup.com/getinfo, and all support material I'll run by during this quick 45 minutes, because I tried to upload it, and the FTP isn't working in here. I just finished the slides like this morning, so let me get back to the hotel before my flight, upload it then. I promise you by 12 noon, everything will be available for you. This gentleman's a good friend of mine. How many of you know Gordon Burrell, seen him speak? Mr. Research. Gordon is very, very good at following the money, and since I'm a money guy, I read all of his reports. I digest them to try to figure out what's going on in our industry. Gordon is a prognosticator who not only shows what's being spent today in all forms of media, but where it's going over the next 5 years. And he's been pretty darn accurate ever since he started issuing these reports on not just legacy media, digital media, and what digital products people are buying. His latest and greatest forecasts, before we get into this program, basically calls this the X year. This is the year where small business, local advertising in your markets, the local advertisers will spend more money on the geeky stuff versus the non-geeky stuff. In other words, all the legacy media, print, radio, television, direct mail, yellow pages, beating a drum in front of their business is going to stay about even, and you're going to see more and more money spent by the small businesses you call on in your markets on the digital products. Now, what digital products are people buying? According to Gordon, well, actually, the colors here are very important. The blue is something you hear a lot about in our industry, digital services, where the yellow is advertising. Digital services is now way in play. Wherever I go, and every media company I talk to now, and I just heard it between the lines this morning from the listening tour, that they're launching what's called digital agencies. And digital agencies basically is when you're selling a product, well, you're selling a product to advertisers that doesn't necessarily reflect what we currently do for a living. So the big question has been, who sells it and how do we get this stuff to market? I mean, do we have a digital specialist? And that's what I heard this morning. I like to call them digital evangelists, because that's someone who focuses totally on the digital, or can you get a legacy salesperson to blend these products into their day-to-day tasks? And we work with a lot of these digital agency services. The one I'm currently engaged with at Gatehouse Media, and I'm going in and out of a lot of their markets recently, we had a big success with them, is Propel. And Propel not only provides digital services to Gatehouse Media, but they also want to sell them to you, and so does Local Edge at Hearst and all the others, and you have a lot of providers. So here's the Propel rate card. I mean, this is the preamble till I get into the study. Of all the products that they want to bring to market now to small businesses, and they want you to sell, we should sell, Gordon says we should sell, everybody we should sell. Now these products here, I believe a digital specialist needs to take to market. And you know, they call this optimize. That's basically, it's helping actually, excuse me, I'm sorry, I've got this, yeah, that's about right. Optimize means they're going to do SEO, you've got social media management, you've got search retargeting, which is basically helping people be found on the internet after people search Google, and building websites. My God, building websites. I own a web development company. I own a company called operaweb.com, which actually builds the sites for some of the top classical musicians in the world. If you ever want to go backstage at the Met, I work with some of those big singers. I'm not into opera, I'm actually into jazz. It was the right place at the right time years ago, but it's never profitable for me, because I have to spend hours and hours and hours collecting this content, getting these suckers built, getting them approved. But it's a little side company. Building websites and things like that can be part of our bag of tricks. We believe that the legacy media reps can sell certain products that can be digital services, one of which is list and local. What that means is you can help an advertiser be found on Google Maps. And I don't have the time to dissect that for you right now, and there are white labeled vendors that'll help you with this service, but basically an advertiser doesn't magically show up at the top of Google Maps anymore. There's some tricks they gotta do. They gotta claim their listing, they gotta cleanse that data across the internet, and they gotta make sure it's even and shown everywhere across the internet. Now there's some white labeled services that you can buy cheap and resell. But in my opinion, it dovetails nicely to the products we have. And you're going to see how we can blend that in a moment. Reputation monitoring. Maybe you are familiar with that, maybe you're not. But basically, advertisers are getting distant endorsed on the internet all over the place. And you can blend that into your products as well. In other words, Mr. Advertiser, people are talking about you on the internet. I can give you a service that will alert you when someone says something, and then you have the wherewithal to reply to it. Here's the one we're going to focus on more. This is something that's huge right now. They call it retargeting. I've been calling it for years Well, you may have heard of the term programmatic advertising or programmatic buying. We call it audience extension or reach extension. And it's available. How many of you are selling this currently now? I know that locally, just a smattering of hands. This is a product you can easily adapt in your day-to-day sales style. What it goes back to is that all the different web providers, search engines, big publishers, everyone have decided to work together through what's called an ad exchange. It's almost like what we tried to do as an industry for years. I remember when Billy Morris spoke at an NAA, 18 years ago, and tried to get us to aggregate our classifieds, right? And it was like herding cats. We as an industry were hard to get to work together, but all the digital providers are now working together through an ad exchange. And you may have been noticing that there's money to be made for local publishers through the exchange as national advertisers want your inventory today. You can actually put your inventory online right now, and at a blink of the eye, someone nationally can buy your inventory. And you're getting about $1.50 a thousand, which is a heck of a lot better than years ago when we were making with Google we were making what, about, left of the decimal point. And some of my publishers who get, you got to have a significant number of page views, maybe 500,000, are making some good dollars that are better than a sharp, poke in the eye with a sharp stick. But that's just automatic revenue you can make. There's another side of this where the local advertiser can tap into national sites locally through the same ad exchange. It may sound geeky, but basically there are now companies you may have heard of that provide this service for you now. And they will negotiate that inventory on the exchange, so no matter how big or small your town is, you can sell the internet locally in your town. And it's not, and we, Facebook. Now, when we train advertisers, I do tons of workshops for local business owners. I spoke to over 10,000 last year in big and small towns. I've got to re-educate them on Facebook. In the middle of Facebook, they shouldn't be selling. I mean, that's not where you put the deal, the offer, the special, the car. That's where you put handing the keys of the car to the proud new owners with a dog and a kid, because anything with a dog and a kid gets great activity on Facebook, am I right? But if they want to do hard sales, they do it in the right rail. Well, you can buy that inventory on the right rail, and it's called geo-targeted inventory locally, and you can even target it to the gender. And this can be all handled for you. And by the way, the ad specs here are a little geeky and nerdy, and they change, so it's better to have someone maybe manage it for you. But it's not just that. It's also the top websites in your markets that people go to. And even more importantly, since it's a mobile universe right now, apps and mobile sites locally. There's even a thing called geofencing you can buy, which means you can buy inventory when people are at a large fair inside that fair on their mobile phones. And you don't have to be a geek or a nerd to buy it. These companies do it for you. You buy the inventory pretty cheap, and then you resell it at a sizable markup. Does that make sense? So, and you blend it into packages. And there's a reason why I'm going to show how we blended it into the package coming up shortly. It gives you more cachet. Your advertisers aren't idiots. They know that people go to more than your website in the town, right? Whatever flavor they like, whatever they're into. Now you can sell them your website and the internet locally. And just about every market we're working in now, I've introduced people to these vendors that sell this service where they buy it, manage it for you, you just rebroker it. All the big companies are doing it now, but even our smallest newspapers, family-owned papers, weeklies are doing it as well. Now, the reason I like it, it circles back to core competency. Digital services, in my humble opinion, is not a core competency. When you're building a website, any geek in a garage can build a website. Do we agree? Any nerd, I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds within the sound of my voice. Anybody graduating from this college can right now do SEO, search engine optimization, search engine marketing, social media management, meaning I know you're too busy, Mr. Advertiser, to handle your Facebook. Let me handle it for you. And all that and more is not a core competency, in my opinion. The rationale of why we take that to market is there's so much money going down with it. If you don't take it, someone else will. You lose the relationship with the advertiser. In my humble opinion, as we circle into this program and this case study, our core competency, and it's how I train salespeople, is renting eyeballs. That's what we do. We are eyeball renters. I mean, that's why I have such respect for the editorial people at the newspapers we work with. I mean, I'm an ad guy, but if they can garner those eyeballs in print, digital, rack, stack, mail, I don't care. You tell me who they are. When I train a salesperson, I say they're either young, old, rich, poor, near, far, man, woman. That's why we believe in solution-based selling. Have a dialogue with the advertiser, right? Learn their goals, needs, and desires. Who's their target customer? And match the ad to the eyeball. It ain't brain surgery, right? When I trained a salesperson, I say in the 1600s to sell a cow, you nailed a note to a tree. Nothing's changed, just notes and trees. We got cows for sale. If I'm selling a cow in 1603, I'm sure as heck putting a note on the path where the cow buyers are walking down, right? That's reach. That's what we sell. So anyway, let's get into, when I'm doing this training, I say to the salespeople, we sell two things, reach and frequency. That's what we sell. And I explain reach and how they learn what reach is. Then again, in this industry, we don't tend to sell a lot of frequency, which frustrates me. I came from radio and television. I started as a disc jockey. I was in the right place at the right time in 1998, managing a radio group in Portland, Maine. Next thing I know, the internet's growing. I was always a geek and a nerd. I sold computers at a Radio Shack to work myself through college in the 70s. I mean, suddenly I'm running an internet division for a company called GeigerNet Communications. But I came from radio and television where we never sold less than 13-week schedules. Always 15 spots a week. We understood the need for frequency. Here I go into newspapers, we sell 1 ad a week, call them again, sell 1 ad. It's ridiculous. It doesn't work. Advertisers must be in your paper every week. They have to be to make it work. So that's what we train on. Now let's discuss quickly. By the way, I'm really proud of this. Media Audit, which is a really cool research company, has licensed my company to take national data to market. Because the NAA study that says 63% reach of average newspapers in the United States is a bit dated and old. They're now saying that there's a 46% reach of newspapers in the United States of America today. This is just me pontificating. I hope that's okay. But that sucks, doesn't it? That means we shut down our presses, right? No one's reading newspapers. That is a killer reach. You take every radio station that impacts a market, and you barely get to 30% reach. When I trained salespeople this week, I was in a Gatehouse Market. I actually said, I don't care what the font is. You give me a Twin Lobster special for $6.95. Put a quarter-page ad in the paper, and I'll pack a restaurant tonight. Do we agree? Our papers rock. That's a killer reach. Now, when you look at the demographics, they're educated, they're homeowners. They earn some income, but I don't lie. I show this slide to audiences. I tell them it's not kids. I mean, I'm going to be turning 59 in 2 weeks. I could call anyone under 35 a kid, right? So basically, I talk 35, baby boomers. What the heck is wrong with a baby boomer? I've got credit cards, cars, and no college debt. This is one of the best products in the world to advertise today. I'm a huge believer in print, but then we train the salespeople and advertisers. More reach means more results. So you tackle, by the way, newspaper websites have a 32% average reach. You have better reach in the paper than you do on the website. Did you know that? It's funny, the reason, there's nothing wrong with selling the newspaper. The challenge of selling newspapers is not reach and results. The challenge of selling newspapers is it's old and stodgy. It's a 120-year-old masthead, and everybody wants something new and shiny, am I right? So you gotta get the digital in there to make the sale more sexy, in my opinion. I don't like taking newspapers to market without digital. Now, we got higher education and income levels, which I see everywhere in homeowners, because people online tend to be more educated and affluent, but when you look at the age groups, they're younger. That's where you have your real kick and reach. So when you put the two together, what we normally wind up with now is a really nice even reach, but here's the magic number. Right now, we're boasting that based on thousands and thousands of media consumers, the snapshot of 2 months ago, it's a 60% reach, 59% of newspapers and print combined. In this room is power. So if I may be so bold, this is what's funny. Gordon spoke at my conference in Chicago last year, and he issued a report, which I love, because when I train salespeople, I always say perception is reality, right? Their perception is our reality. Like it or hate it, if they think the internet is where everything's going, you got to have digital in your back pocket to still be relevant, even though you know in your heart the paper's got the juice. So Gordon came out with a report with advertisers' perceptions versus reality. And keep in mind, this is what's hilarious. We all see the referrals at the top. I mean, I've been selling media now for 30 years. We don't need to advertise. We use word of mouth. Ever heard that one? I mean, it's all over the place. They believe in that, so it's our reality. I mean, I have to negate that, through workshops and training salespeople about there's no brand loyalty, right? Only 1 out of 4 consumers are loyal today. You've got to market sometimes to keep your current customer base. And they talk about their website. There's Facebook, social media. How about this? Just in the last 3 years, we make 5,000 four-legged sales calls a year. Now we're hearing this one. We don't need to do anything on the internet. We have a Facebook page. Ever heard that one? So you got to re-educate them on Facebook, how it works, how the reach has been negated massively. Massively. Less than 10% of your likes now see your posts. And what should you post and not post? But here's what I love about perception equals reality. They say newspapers are being disrupted. Look at that. Print newspaper ads, in their opinion, have better chance for results than all of your legacy media competition. They still think we rock. We're going to hear objections on the street, but newspapers still rock in their perception. This is Gordon, not me, and he's the one talking about disruption. By the way, television's disruption is massive. Those boxes have killed 66% of all viewership of commercials. Except, you know, if you're under 25, you cut the cable right now, am I right? Nobody under 25 even gets cable anymore. They're all streaming. And they claim that within 5 years, television stations will have a massive loss of local advertising. And by the way, this election cycle, in my humble opinion, has proven that television commercials don't have the same results as they used to have. And then we can get in, I cut my teeth in radio. That's me as a, look, I'm a disc jockey, 83, that's Ed Bradley interviewing me. I got on 60 Minutes with one irreverent joke. I had 16 years in radio. I'll tell you something right now. I don't even know radio because I have satellite in my rental cars. I love satellite. As soon as I heard the 70s channel, I signed contracts, right? I mean, except that's the radio of the future. Even GM's taking AM and FM radios out of cars. Then I could talk about the yellow pages, right? Oh my God, yellow pages. This is the only industry that does not know it's dead. I mean, I spoke at a Yellow Page conference last year, and they still feel that they have something going, but no one's reading the book. Do we agree? Even Jay Leno said, Yellow Pages is for the 3 people who don't have the internet, right? So as we go into this case study, and maybe I'm pontificating too much, and I threw these slides in this morning, maybe it was my lack of sleep, but can we get our swagger back? Can we go out in the street? If we go out feeling dead, sales is a transference of energy. Do we agree? If we go out feeling dead, the advertiser believes it. There is nothing wrong with our healthy industry right now. I want us to swagger out there and understand the power of our products. 59% reach is incredibly cool, and I'm honored to work with newspapers. All right, so let's talk about these guys. Pamplin Media. This is the case study they wanted me to focus on, and it was our biggest success last year. Pamplin is weeklies surrounding Portland, Oregon. And they also own a radio station, too. And it's a very hyper-local. I mean, it's just weeklies. They're all surrounding, and they serve their towns with small circ papers, and there's tons and tons of titles. Now, there's a lot of sellers out there. There's about 27 of them. But they only have one digital specialist. You know, there's all this talk now that traditional ad reps shouldn't sell digital. And I'm not a big believer in that. I believe that, as I said, if you're going to start a digital agency, you better have a specialist, because if you want your sales rep to make 8 face-to-face calls a day, the moment they get into selling digital services, they're in front of an advertiser for a half a day with something that may or may not be profitable. Am I right? So it depends, but on certain services, we only have one digital specialist that's helping all these local publishers, and each of these publishers is really in charge of their hyper-local products. Some have 1 rep, some have 2, some have 3, and the publisher's selling as well. So the product that we went after was native advertising. And this all went down in November. Brian Pamplin, the vice president of their sales organization, said, we're going to go into native. And it was funny, I should tell you the truth. I never heard the word native until 3 years ago. Or was it 3.5? Chicago Sun-Times. They bring me into a meeting. They were a client of mine back then, and they made me sign an NDA, and they start talking native. I had no idea what the guy was talking about. You play the shuffle, you smile, try to figure out what native. I thought he was selling ads to casinos, right, and whatever. And then I realized what's going on, and there was a geek next to me. Like this guy's 22. I felt like I had shoes older than this guy. And I looked at him. This is a true story, and I said, advertorial. He said, no, it's native. You can't say the word. You can't say advertorial with native, because I've been doing this for years. So I whipped out my phone during the break, and I looked up the word advertorial in Wikipedia, and it says native and advertorial. So it's pretty. But let's define what it really means, okay? Yes, there's massive growth with this native advertising phenomenon. Unbelievable. Well, what is it? Well, Gordon Burrell says that it's only 6.3% right now, last year, of local advertising revenue. But it's going to be growing by leaps and bounds. Except no one knows what it is. Is it sponsored content? Is it featured content? Is it brought to you by content? So let's first define it. The Internet Advertising Bureau basically likes to throw in there the word page. So again, where's my print? It's all digital, according to the IAB. Well, Internet Advertising Bureau, why would they mention the newspaper? Because newspapers don't exist, am I right? I mean, and then we get into this guy. I follow this guy, Francisco. He is great, and he's very smart. But again, digital. The digital experience is what he talks about. But if you go to Wikipedia, a type of advertising usually online, okay? Now, I'm going to show you, in my humble opinion, I hope you don't mind, before we get into the case study, the first native ad. Would you like to see it? Yeah. Say yes. Come on. Okay, fine. Andy Griffith Show, 1960s. I'm serious. What is native? Well, let's take a look at the Andy Griffith Show for a second. Oh, where's my audio? Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm going to go, whoops, 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 whoops. Where's my audio? Are we on? I guess we are. My apologies. Maybe I have to do something a little different here. Would you stay with me for 1 second? And I apologize to the group, and maybe I didn't my sound hook up, and I have it going through output. She told me I was supposed to switch this over to HDMI. We're going to do it to the headphone port because I want to share this with you. Let's try it one more time, see if it works. Now, why is that native advertising, in my humble opinion? This is an ad guy, not an editorial guy. And although I started as a disc jockey on the content side, when I moved to the advertising side, I felt like I changed personalities. But the truth is, in my opinion, you are tricking the viewer or reader that they think they're reading something that's editorial or seeing something that's editorial or not. I'm sure when that commercial was proposed to make tons of money for the network, the content people, the producers of the show, had to approve the words, right? Because they don't want to take the brand of Andy and Opie, correct? That's their money machine. But they allowed the advertisement to happen seamlessly so the viewer doesn't know they suddenly slipped from programming. Am I making sense? You may disagree with me. And when I have these discussions all the time over beers with people on the editorial side, but that, in my opinion, is native advertising. So how did we do it here? Well, we made $400,000 over 2 weeks, but that's a lie, because it's now over $750,000. Just a few months later, they just kept selling and selling this program. Weekly newspapers, and when I bring Brian into my conference in 3 weeks in Chicago, he says it's going to be over $1 million. You want to hear it? Say yes. Here are the elements of the program. Okay, we did not call it Ask the Experts. Never do that. Remember that one? We did that, and Ask the Pros. You can't do that, because if you say ask the advertiser thinks someone's going to ask them a question. Does that make sense? You have these online forms that no one fills out. So it was experts. We are establishing people as experts. That's the big picture now. Now, how do we establish these experts? We're going to do it in the newspaper first. Very few of my companies look back at the newspaper as a forms of embedding the native content. We're doing it with a gang page every week where we rotate through a certain number of these experts, okay? That's what we're doing. And every week they're positioned as an expert. What's wrong with that? I don't see anything wrong with that. It's in the newspaper. We use the same font, right? I mean, it does say sponsored, whatever, but there you go. Now, we stick it on the internet. Now, here's the big debate about how you put the native content. Whenever I lecture on this in front of advertisers or train on it, I use 2 words, commingle or infuse. The trick is, how do you commingle or infuse the content? Some of my guys, my clients, put it right in here with the editorial. These guys made a decision with their editorial team to put it a little bit off to the left rail. Does that make sense? And they're rotating. If you go to any of their websites, you'll see that they rotate up, rotate up, rotate up. And then there's a link at the top of the page, and every now and then they take an ad position and they talk up one of the native stories. And then the top here would link into the native page. For each of the brands, there's a native page with the content. Or if you click on the individual story, you're now nailing it into the individual story. And that's how people find online these individual stories from our experts. So far, so good, all right? So there's 2 different ways these stories are found. By the way, rule number 1 on native advertising, in my opinion, is it's evergreen content. What I mean by evergreen is you don't let the advertiser's content in any way be a deal, offer, special. It can't be time sensitive. For a number of reasons. Number 1, that doesn't look good in the paper, and the editors, hey, we're having a big sale. That's not native. There has to be advice. And the second reason I like it is so we can take advantage of something called Google's PageRank and our SEO, search engine optimization. And I do whole workshops on this, and I'm trying to do this in 3 minutes. But if you don't know how Google ranks pages in the organic results, it's based on 2 different criteria, relevance and popularity. Relevance means Google's ranking millions of web pages a minute looking for words to match. And odds are, whatever town that you super serve with your web product, if you type just the name of your town into Google, your pages come way up to the top because the words of your communities are all over your pages. Google likes information websites. The second criteria is popularity. Popularity is based on links to a website. More popular a page, that links to a website, the more it rises. So PageRank on Google operates with two criteria: words and links, words and links, words and links. All right, so like for example, one of the towns this newspaper super serves is Beaverton, Oregon. It's a community outside of Portland, Oregon. And if you look at, there's their local newspaper website. And just about every local newspaper I work with, and some of us have cool SEO products that we embed. By the way, when I heard this morning about the directory product that is served by Town News, you don't sell that as a directory product. I've taken hundreds of those to market. It's not just the Town News product, but I've taken Lawrence Journal World's product and all the others. I mean, there was years where we were all selling directories. You never say to an advertiser, by the way, everybody's going to come to our page and look for a plumber. No, they're not idiots. People go to Google. Do we agree? Google is the #1 search engine, but the page that the plumber is on clicks in your website. Does that make sense? Offering it as a landing page that usually optimizes well. And by the way, the Town News ad, I think they call it Blocks product, has good optimization. Well, the same thing applies to the native content. These pages embedded in the local newspaper website, if they're evergreen oriented, will actually come up high on Google searches because they have time to cook on Google. Does this make sense? Some of the national vendors, like there's one out there now that wants to take a chunk of your inventory and sell native into that, then offer you a piece of the action as they sell to national advertisers. Then they let you pay them, like one is called Nativo, and you can use the same tool to give you a widget to sell a local native page. But those pages have no SEO because they're living on their server and being served dynamically, and they're not cooking as an actual web page. In my opinion, one of the great features and benefits of a native play online is the page is evergreen, it lives on your website, it'll come up on searches, and it's like giving the advertiser opium, because if they cancel the contract, all those pages go away. If people are searching for them, and there's a lot of ways, we're trying to train our media partners to keyword them just right, so they come up not just with the name of the business, but possibly the value propositions of the business. This isn't bad. So far, so good? Is everybody with me? So now we're moving on. How do you fulfill this content? Well, that's a good question, because you've got to generate these stories, and the advertisers should not write them themselves. Number one, they won't do it. You're not going to get a local advertiser to take the time to write 3 or 4 paragraphs. Number two, if they do it, they're going to do it wrong. And number three, I do agree with my editorial friends when I go into newspapers that there has to be value to this content. It must meet editorial muster. And by the way, when I'm doing workshops with advertisers on these programs, I say that loud and proud, because everybody wants what they can have. So I say, we're going to work with you. You're our partner. And we're going to craft this content so it commingles or infuses with our content effectively, which means you have to have people create it for them. Now, here was the challenge. We saw it, and I love these guys. BrandForge, by the way, comes out of, you may have heard of Deseret Media in Salt Lake City. I know the guys that are there. They're now selling their content to the industry. Paul Camp in Chicago has content that works. He's been around for years. Many of you may use him. And they will be gladly craft content for an advertiser. I mean, they will. And by the way, to craft content for an advertiser, if you do a native play, you write it for them and you suggest it to them. They don't have time. You have to have a content creator who will actually say to the dentist, by the way, Halloween's coming. I found some cool stuff on the internet and how kids should choose certain candy versus uncertain candy to avoid tooth decay. I can craft 3 or 4 paragraphs on that. Does that work for you? And they usually say, yeah. Does that make sense? You're usually suggesting what they write. They may suggest things to you. And that's how it works. The problem with these guys is it's expensive. Now, we closed $5.6 million last year in business for our media partners. Half of that was print, but my average ticket last year was $5,300. Divide that by the month, and you got to make a tidy profit on this. These guys want somewhere between $150 and $200 per story. There goes your profit. So we decided to avoid the national guys and go local. What we did was I'm going to say 2 words. Is it 1 word or 2 words? I think it's 1 word. Craigslist. That's 1 word, isn't it? I know you guys hate it because it disrupted our classified industry. I lived through that with the San Francisco American Chronicle when it came out. But we went on Craigslist and we found local content people. And they are willing, able, we auditioned them, and we found 3 for the scope of our business. They're not full-time employees. And I'm not going to spend too much time because I'm an ad guy, but I shared for you in the links to download the actual job descriptions we crafted for what we now call our insider reporters. Does that make sense? And there's 3 of them now. Soon to hire a 4th. It's going so well. And we're paying somewhere north of $30 a story. Does that make sense? Now we got a profit. So now we're doing okay as you see how we price and package this to market. So that's how that fulfillment. Now, the sales rep makes first content with the client, not the reporter. After the deal is closed, and I'll show you the packaging in a moment, still have time to show it to you. Then it gets, so what happens is the rep first has to set up the account, and I'm sharing that with you. We came up with all these fulfillment tools. You can download this as well, and have the initial dialogue with the advertiser and collects the logo, collects the information about the business, so he has his hands around this advertiser before he passes it off to the reporter who's actually going to craft the content. And then they fill out this little background form. That's the rep's job. And then that's turned over to the reporter who takes over. We require the rep to be part of the approval process of the stories. We want the rep involved in this. So as the story's being crafted, because the reporter's going to make contact with the client now, craft a story, send it to the client for approval, copies the rep. Does this make sense? So the rep knows what's going on, is on top of these stories that are being crafted. And then we have all this up there. Once again, all of these are available for you to download, for free. Because Brian, and by the way, I'll leave my business cards because I got to run and do a couple calls before my flight. But I'll even put you in touch with them because he's willing to talk to other media companies how this process is going. And he says it's going pretty well. The content flow is working. So now we have all this done and we've crafted the stories. Let's go to market and talk about how we made all this money. Let's go to market. Now here are the goals. Number one, we want new business. We don't want to sell this to existing business. We want to ferret out those businesses that aren't doing business with us with this new shiny toy. Number two, I sell full year contracts. Failing that, I will do a 6-month contract review. If we can't sign a full year in front of a small business, we will let them reevaluate the contract in 6 months without a short rate. I believe every sales rep should be selling full year contracts. I find this industry, and I hope you don't mind me pontificating, doesn't get that. Many, many media companies, advertisers do not walk away from us. We close 66% of qualified decision makers into full year contracts. We have an 80% contract retention. It just requires aggressive sales tactics, but we're wasting too much time in the industry by reselling everybody every month. We got to go for full year contracts. We want effective campaigns, and this is critical. We want them getting results. And you'll see how I blended this. We worked on this thing, and the trick to getting results is reach and frequency. Don't you agree? So, one article rotating through a month for an advertiser isn't going to get them results. Does everybody agree? So we had to augment the package. This was our secret sauce when we worked with Brian. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sell ads that go with that, so we get reach and frequency down. So on the weeks that the column is not appearing in the paper, we're selling the advertiser because we believe in our media an ad in the off weeks. Does this make sense? There's nothing wrong with this as a full campaign for the advertiser. We called them branding ads. And since I believe in more reach means more results, we sold them ads on the website that corresponded with that message. So now they're getting 1 column a month, 3 branding ads a month off weeks. So far, so good. Then we blended in audience extension because I believe in it. And when we have it in our bag of tricks, we close 20% more contracts because advertisers believe in it. They really, even in the smallest markets, I can show you case studies working with sound publishing in Whidbey Island. We had to get there by float plane. We had small businesses getting the idea that they want to buy the internet locally. I suggest everyone in this room consider looking at audience extension. We have a college newspaper coming on board, the Kentucky Kernel. We're now picking up college newspapers because I spoke at the Sun Conference last year, Southern University newspapers, and they're looking at audience extension. There's nothing wrong with this product. So now we're selling not just the ads on the local website, we're extending it to the internet. We're putting the whole bag of tricks together nice and pretty. Don't forget Facebook, everybody loves Facebook. So now we're putting all that together, and we're now about to have some fun, and I'll show you how we blended this program, how we took it to market. Oh, and I forgot one last thing that we did, and this is how to make some money on Facebook, to answer that question. We allowed that every time we posted the article, we also posted that on the Facebook page. Now, this was part of a package, but I believe in selling sponsored Facebook posts. Maybe you don't believe. If you have a large social media footprint, and again, any content you put on the Facebook page must meet editorial muster. There's absolutely nothing wrong with selling a post, a sponsored post on your, now, again, I'm an ad guy. Some of you may bristle at that. But we've made hundreds of thousands of dollars last year, including that in products as well. Now, finally, we gave them a little ego. We ran some house ads promoting our experts that just appeared randomly throughout all the print products. We even gave them a nice little plaque to stick in their office. All right? Now, was every advertiser sold the same package? No. I mean, I believe every advertiser in your town should be in your paper every week and be on your website every week. I believe that in my heart of hearts. And I go into local newspapers screaming that to salespeople. With 60% reach, I don't care if the business is business to business, business to consumer, product or service driven, they should be on your newspaper every week. It's just harder to sell. It's not as easy as 30 years ago. We got to be aggressive about it. However, on the back of my business card, could you shout this out loud? What does it say on the back of my business card?
Prognosis without diagnosis is malpractice.
Do you agree? You don't write prescriptions without an exam. So we need to meet with the advertiser and find out what they're trying to accomplish. I believe the prognosis without diagnosis, the solution-based or consultative sales process simply means you have a dialogue about the message. So what we did is we crafted a number of different package levels, and we're not going into the markets with menus. Never go into an advertiser and say, which one do you want? That's not consultative selling. We go in based on the diagnosis we did first, and I'll show you the diagnosis sheets that we came up with. And here's how the deals go down. When I build packages for my media companies, I build a deck called ABCD, which stands for Audience Bundle Creative Deal. We build thousands of these a year and go to market with a story. And you can download the decks, by the way, right now online. I put them there for you. And remember, my secret sauce, as I mentioned earlier, is we leverage digital to sell print. It's the blend that gets the print ad sold. I like having a lot of digital wrapped around print to get that weekly print ad sold, even though hopefully we've already established, I hope you agree, that the reach of your newspaper is pretty darn healthy and it's worthy of taking to market. And finally, every program I take to market has limited availability. Again, when I was in radio and television, we live that. You can't, when you're managing a radio station, you can't pick up the phone and call the National Bureau of Standards the day before and say, can I have an extra hour tomorrow? We always had limited availability. There was urgency based on limited inventory. The problem here in our industry is, maybe you disagree, but we don't get supply and demand right, because when demand increases, we increase pages. We shouldn't. We should. There's urgency. People want what they can't have. Scarcity increases desire. So as we built these decks, they're limited, very limited. We made a category exclusive to in some markets, or limited it to only 15, just based on getting urgency to close. So here's the cover page. We have propaganda about the local audience in there, and you can download these and look them over. I don't want to bore you with that. Now here's how we explained it. We'll craft your monthly advice column. We tell the advertiser we'll craft their column for them. And we have a little dialogue about it. This whole pitch takes about 8 minutes. And then Mr. Advertiser or Miss Advertiser will also stick that column on the internet. And after we talk about the digital delivery of the story, we talk about search engine optimization and explain it ever so quickly. How this story will live on our website, which is very popular on Google, and allow you to also be found that way. And if you really want to have some fun, you talk about the link from the story back to their website, which gives them some of our popularity. Remember, links from your site, not ads. Ads don't give them popularity, links do. And then we talk about the Facebook post, and then we get into the extra reach. Now, Mr. Advertiser, we'll give you a 2x4 3 times each month. On your off weeks, these are all branded for the local market. We'll give you ads on our local website, 10,000 a month. We'll also deliver the internet to you locally. And what I mean by that, Mr. Advertiser, is the same message that's on our website will appear on thousands of websites right here in Beaverton, Oregon. And of course, since you're one of our selected experts, we'll make sure we promote you as an expert as well. Now here's the top package. 173 a week. We didn't sell a lot of those. I'm a Delta flyer. I live in Florida, flew up here through you know what they say, when you die in the South, whether you go to heaven or hell, you stop in Atlanta on the way, am I right? So I'm a Delta flyer, so I always use diamond as the top package because I'm a diamond, and then it goes down to platinum and gold and silver. And then, we're showing a discount, but it's not a fire sale. That's what all this media would have cost on a one-up basis, and there's a full year contract required. Now, we dropped from 173 down to 146. We sold a lot of these. And all we did here is remove the audience extension. Does that make sense? We just backed that out to give us a tighter profit. That was the sweet spot we really, really nailed. If the advertiser balked on the 146, we backed it down to 122, and all we did was just take out one extra ad a month. So remember, it's a back down process. We went in at a price point that would not scare them off, and then slowly back down. And I'm letting you download these packages as well at blendergroup.com/getinfo. By the way, they're already there. All the other forms, I got those uploaded last night, but I finished the slides while I was sitting back there, and I can't upload them in this room. So we're almost done. Basically, when I trained up the salespeople and I was sitting in a room with them, I talked about best bets. Here's who you're going after. Again, you can download this kit. We're going after service-related businesses, which we don't rock at. Healthcare is on fire. Don't even call it healthcare. Either call it wellness or call it paint and body work, because that's what it really is. And we're talking aging baby boomers trying to look young, lose weight, lose varicose veins. This thing in my ear cost me $3,600. I don't need it. My wife just started mumbling a few years ago. But audiology's on fire, and these are businesses we never rocked in, but they're ex-Yellow Page categories. And every doctor's, I call it doc in the box now, right? They're urgent cares. Home improvement. Any guy with a white truck and a ladder is fair game, and they all want to be experts. You go high-end, and if you want to attack and you got a glossy magazine with all those high-end home improvement guys, you attack those. Colleges love this. Real estate, by the way, agents for us, we're closing a real estate agent a day. The heck with the broker owner, the money's moving down the food chain. Have you noticed that? There's a lot of money at this level, and one bus seat in your town may be $300 a month. That's nothing compared to the media we have. And then automotive is not about the new car, it's about fixing the car. It's all about auto aftermarket now. And that's, by the way, if you don't think auto aftermarket is in play, how come Ford is spending millions of dollars on national television pushing oil changes and tires, right? I mean, this is the whole new world. They make the money on the change. Then we targeted new business, either sporadic, dormant, or new. And that's who we went after. And we had the reps charge in hard. And one of the things you will see that you can download is what I call the 10-minute needs analysis. Remember, prognosis without diagnosis is malpractice. Where we trained the reps to do the initial appointment, assessing their needs. And there was a little script we gave them, you'll see. Mr. Advertiser, we've selected you as possibly one of the partners that we feel worthy of being into this program. Make it exclusive. We're looking for partners. You came up to the top of our list. By the way, give us a no, give us a yes, a no is okay, because we may end up selling it to your competitor. That's how it usually goes down. The urgency of the close is based on exclusivity. And then finally, then I parachute in my guy to help them and train them how to sell it. That's what I'm proud of. Bob only did 400,000. I don't know if you may have heard of Bob Kelleher. He was running, he was running Calkins Media Digital for years, and I got him from Journal Register. He's been on my team for 5 years. And Bob is amazingly good at helping train the people. I'm so proud because after the 400, they're almost at 1 million. And again, you'll see how we did that as well and how we set it all up. So all of that is in there for you for download, how we set it up for the reps. And it was a pretty cool program that in 2 weeks generated $400,000 at a tough time of year to sell, which is November. So that's the one you wanted me to feature, I assume. That is how did I do? Is everybody happy? I'm looking at my clock. Is everybody good? Should I take a few? I can't stick around because I got to do a couple conference calls on a flight, but I'll take some questions and I'll throw my business cards in front. But is there any questions on this? Did I talk too fast? Yes, ma'am.
No, coming over there. Whoa, wait a minute.
The mic guy.
No, you can't do that.
You were about to ask about circulation?
Yes, I wanted to know what is the circulation of the newspapers that you're selling these packages?
Most of the papers we work with were running somewhere around 2,000 to 3,000 weeklies, maybe 4. But remember, this is a company that manages 22 of them.
Right.
But limited resources, small office, one digital guy. I mean, they're operating, it's a very profitable company. They stay under the radar. Not many people have heard of Pamplin Media, but because they just don't attend a lot of conferences. They are very profitable. They operate lean and mean. As I said, the publishers, they don't even call them general managers, are selling. Does that make sense on the street? But they're 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 circ papers. They do have one bi-weekly in the city called the Portland Tribune that's massively competing, but the real strength of their company is the weeklies. Was there another question? Did I? Yes, yes, sir.
So whenever we sell digital advertising, digital anything, all the the large advertisers for sure, and anybody who works with an agency thinks they have it figured out. It's all about the click-through rate. Yeah. And they're so focused on that. And I'm wondering if, if you're seeing anything that satisfies that desire to see a click-through rate with this type of advertising. Right, and one other thing is, are you able to kind of divert that or change that conversation with telling them that there's SEO benefit to having their links back to the website?
Definitely. This whole program is full of benefit. Not even that, the sponsored Facebook post. When we meet with salespeople, we discuss 2 forms of advertising, instant impact or frequency branding. That's what I call them. Instant impact means an advertiser, I like alliteration, call, click, or customer, right? Now, if that's what they want, they got to meet us halfway. I mean, I can share with you the slides. When I do workshops, I say reach and frequency is half the battle. How about offer and immediacy? And no one's driving 5 blocks out of their way for 5% off dry cleaning. Do you agree? And by the way, 20% off doesn't work. When's the last time you saw a car dealer say that car's 20% off? $199 a month, no money down, right? Then they say, hurry. They don't say we got plenty. They say deal ends in 24 hours. Offer and immediacy. And how many times have you heard the newspaper doesn't work? Have you heard that? Well, Mr. Advertiser, I'll make you a deal. I'll prove it works next week. I'll buy you a full week for free. Everybody who comes by your business gets a $100 bill. You offer them that, we'll see if anyone stops by. They always say, what? I'll go broke. Oh, then we do work. Meet me halfway. You know, so if they want to click, you've got to train the advertiser and the sales rep to make the ad valuable enough to click it. Does that make sense? Minimize expectations. Go for a 0.25 click-through rate. Does that make sense? That's a good rate. I mean, if you want a good number, and then if you have 50,000 impressions or 30,000, you're going to get them some traction. But what about frequency branding? Every business has to create top-of-mind awareness. Don't we agree? There's value in the ad being seen. And we have to train our reps to push that towards, see, it's not just about growing an advertiser's business. Sometimes it's creating top-of-mind awareness to maintain their market share. So we have to think of all the different benefits we have through media. I hope I answered your question. But yeah, and the SEO is a big part. I love SEO, anything we can offer. One more question, or are we done with time? Is there any more? Well, I know I'd speak fast. I apologize, but I think I was recorded, so maybe you can slow it down. Does that make But I'll leave some business cards here on the counter, and I'll stick around for the break. I have an 11 o'clock, if that's okay, conference call, then I have to leave for the... All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.